BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything sports betting. Every stat, matchup breakdown, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during games. With the largest catalog of odds on everything from football, MLB playoffs, NHL, NBA, to political props. When the game's over, head over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. Bet online. The game starts here.
What's up, Tiger fans? Welcome back to another episode of Tiger Talk TV. I am the Corey C. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a single upcoming episode. You can find us on the Apple Podcast app, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. So be sure to follow the show and tell every Tiger that you know. And remember, when you support Tiger Talk TV, it all helps the cause, which is the I Love Jackson State University. All right, this is it. This is the one we've been waiting for. They made us wait a little bit longer this season. We usually get this one out of the way right at the beginning of the season, but they made us wait. But it's all good because we got two top 25 teams now. ESPNU is at the vet, so it was worth the wait. FAMU versus Jackson State. And joining me to tell us about the Rattlers is a guy who covers the Rattlers for the Tallahassee Democrat and the USA Today Florida Network, and he wins awards for it. That's right. None other than Gerald Thomas. Welcome to Tiger Talk TV.
Yes, sir. How you doing? I'm happy to be here. It's going to be a big showdown this weekend with a lot of implications on it. So man, I'm ready to dig into it.
A lot of implications, and they made us wait this year. Normally we kick it off right there at the beginning of the season, but they made us wait and see what would happen. But guess what? The same implications, no different. Whether it's week 1 or week 7, it's still pretty much. We don't want to say for the East, but that's what it's looking like. That's what it's looking like.
Yeah, so
definitely we want to find out about this new look FAMU team, something that we haven't seen before. Obviously, a lot of changes. We'll get to it, but first, just tell us about yourself. Obviously, you're the man. You know all about the Rattlers. How long have you been down there in Tallahassee?
Yeah, man. So I moved down here, moved to Tallahassee, away from home of Savannah, in 2022, April 2022. Moved down here, covered FAMU. Got here around baseball, softball season, right. So that was like the first sports. I got like a special type of love for baseball and softball at FAMU just because those were the first teams that I actually were covering. But covered the 2022 season, covered the 2023 season where they went all the way. Football, and now I'm here 2024, 3 seasons later, and just trying to get even better, man. Trying to make my coverage one of the best in the nation, and treat FAMU like it's one of those Power 5 schools out here, man. So I'm just trying to just make it happen and live the dream and keep winning awards for it.
Keep it up, man, because we look to you to see what's going on with FAMU. So you got to keep it up for us.
Right.
But no, man, you got there right at the right time. I mean, this is your 3rd year. So 2 years ago is when FAMU really started to take off from a football standpoint, coincided with when Jackson State started to take off. So, since you've been there, these have been the 2 teams. So no better to talk about it than you. But first, let's talk about the buzz in Tallahassee surrounding this game. Usually it's in Miami now, obviously in Jackson, but, different coaching staffs on both sides than it's been in the past. But I'm sure the buzz is, for us, it's the same. We're at an all-time high because we're out for revenge. Typically, it's FAMU out for revenge. So what's the buzz like around town, campus, fans, things like that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, historically, Jackson State has had FAMU's number. Jackson State has beaten FAMU more than FAMU has beaten Jackson State. So, I mean, it's a little different. I mean, we got Coach TC. He's entering his 2nd year, and we got Coach Cozy in his 1st year. I mean, it's a little different not being in Miami, but I think with it being a home series, I think that's going to add a little bit to that Bruin rivalry because, I mean, FAMU, to me, I feel like FAMU and Jackson State is a fairly new rivalry. I always see the FAMU and Jackson. It's always FAMU and Jackson going at it. It's always them 2 button heads on social media and all those things. So I know social media is going to be on fire on Saturday, regardless of what the result is. Even if FAMU was to lose, FAMU people still going to be talking trash. Jackson people still going to be talking trash if they were to lose. So man, it's going. It got that. I said FAMU and Alabama State had game of the year potential, but FAMU and Jackson definitely has game of the year. Just with everything that's on the line here.
Yeah. This will be different, man. You talked about Jackson State having FAMU's number over the years. Jackson State leads the series 12-8 and two ties, and FAMU took it last year, so kind of tables are turned. But before we get into the game, let's rewind back to last offseason. Big change. I mentioned it at the top of the show, but big change at the top of the FAMU program. The coaching staff, of course, Coach Willie Simmons, he moves on to Duke, the running backs coach, and then Coach James Colsey steps in. Now, that process for us, we talked about the back and forth on social media. That process played out. It dragged out throughout the media and on the internet for the world to see it. And it seemed like it was kind of controversial, at least from the outside looking in. But what do you remember about that and Coach Colsey ultimately getting the job permanently?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, yeah, it was a long process. But luckily for the guys that play at FAMU that was advocating for Colsey to get the job, got it. That was a guy that I believe, even Coach Simmons even lobbied for when he first departed and said, "Hey, get this guy to, this is the guy to get a job to, especially if you got a championship program. If you just came off a championship, you want to be able to squeeze the orange so there's no juice left. So I mean, you promote somebody, you bring it, you promote somebody, and you keep them there, and then you see how it goes, and then say if it wasn't to work out, and then it's like, okay, now we can start fresh. You know what I mean? But I mean, Colsey was the guy. I told Coach he owes me a portion of his contract.
Okay.
Because I felt like I did his PR job for him.
Okay.
When I interviewed him, because it was so many he say, she say. So I went to Colsey and I asked him, I said, and this on the record, I said, do you want the job or not? And he said, yeah, I want the job. And a few days later, I ain't saying I had nothing to do with it, but a few days later he was getting the job. So I mean, Colsey and just like Coach Simmons, both of them have been pretty good to work with. I can tell they respect my coverage, and those are coaches that I respect too. So it's mutual respect going on, and that's one reason that I try to make sure my coverage is so good, because I got people that's internal at FAMU that's really enjoying the work that I do. So I got to keep it up.
No doubt. So talk about that transition, how it's been for Coach Colsey, starting with off the field. We'll get to the on the field, but just kind of off the field, what it was like.
Yeah, Colsey. I feel like him and Coach Simmons are similar a lot. And I was just talking about to somebody. I said both of them are flashy guys. I said it's a different type of flash, but both of those guys are flashy guys. Like, Coach Simmons, he wears sunglasses and his nice suits and all those type of things. And I said, I still remember going to the Me at SWAT challenge. Coach Colsey was telling us, man, I got to figure out what I'm wearing to the game. You know what I mean? So it's those type of things, those similarity differences. I mean, the obvious difference that Coach Simmons is a quarterback, and Colsey is a defensive back. So they have kind of different focuses. They got the same goal, but they kind of got different focuses. And that's the main thing. Coach Colsey, he still stays with the cornerbacks. That's what he got hired at FAMU initially when he got here in 2022. So those are the main things. Both of those guys are still pretty open. It's not a time where I can call Coach Colsey and ask him, hey, I need a little something, need a little quote from you or something, and he tell me no. And it goes the same thing for Coach Simmons. So both of them, great guys. They're very gracious to the media. And I think that's why I like covering so much, just because, anything that I asked for, they provided to me as if I'm one of their players or an assistant or something like that. So I just enjoyed both of them.
Jackson State went through this same process 1 year earlier, of course, with Coach Prime leaving and Coach T.C. Taylor taking over. Coach Taylor had to fill almost an entirely new roster with so many players transferring out. And FAMU finished last season with 13 all-SWAC selections. They lost 10 of those guys to either the portal or graduation, and some big-name guys. Coach Colsey added about 50 or so new players to the team. So talk about the task of rebuilding the roster that he was faced with.
Man, it's so many new players on FAMU team, man. Sometimes I watch the game and somebody make a play, and I'm in the press like, hey, who is it? You know what I mean? Just when you got a new little team like that, you have to learn the whole you have to learn a whole new squad. It actually feels like, for me, it feels like I'm in year one all over again. You know, when in the 2022 season, I was learning the team, and then 2023, I was like, all right, I know everybody on the team because everybody come back. And then 2024 come around, you get a new coach, you get a lot of guys transferring out, you get a lot of guys graduate. So it's like you got to learn. You program yourself. If you see a number 8 on the field, you program yourself and say, oh, that's Musa. But now, you know, number 8 can be anybody. So I mean, yeah, I think Coach Cozy having those South Florida ties, I think that helps him recruit. Because I mean, he went crazy in the portal. Granted, he had to just to fill out that roster, because even during the spring game, that was a game, that was something that I really didn't. You know, I know a lot of people are excited that football is back for, you know, those 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, however long spring is. But I say, you know, I can't put too much stock in the spring, because you got guys entering the portal during the spring. You got guys saying, "Oh, I might come back." You know, you have that type of stuff. So you kind of just going out there, not necessarily with your B team, but you're out there with guys that you might not know if you're gonna be on the team when the season starts. You know, nowadays how it is now. But yeah, he definitely hit the portal hard, and I mean, he got some good players. He got that tight end Carter Johnson from Pitt. Daniel Richardson was one of Willie Simmons' last recruits. And I actually talked to Coach Simmons last weekend. We was talking about that. I was like, man, you left them a good parting gift. I know that. But you know, they hit that portal hard. That's what you got to do nowadays to you know, to stay afloat in college sports. So, you know, that's what it's all about. If you look at FAMU's roster, all those guys are transfers. Jamar Gassett, he came from Buffalo last season. Daniel Richardson played at Florida Atlantic. Like I said, Carter Johnson from Pitt, the other tight end, Kobe Groves, he played at Florida State a couple seasons ago on defense. Westmoreland, he came from Kansas. There's so many guys. Even Kendall Bowler. People typically forget Kendall Bowler was a transfer. Kendall Bowler came from Mercer. So I mean, you know, that's just how you got to stay afloat nowadays. But I mean, if it's working, then you know, keep going to it. You know, especially if you're in a win now mentality, which a lot of college programs are in.
Yep. Not only faced with the task of rebuilding the roster, but also putting together a staff. So talk about, well, first of all, did he retain a lot of the coaches from Coach Simmons' staff? And overall, just how has that staff shaped up? You don't have to go through each person name by name, but just kind of telling me some things that have stood out about the staff.
Yeah, and that's the good thing about when you have a championship program. I mean, if you just won a championship, you got a championship team and you got a championship staff. Now, of course, you know, when you're that successful, you're gonna have guys that get other opportunities. So I mean, they lost the biggest loss was Ryan Smith, who was the defensive coordinator, who had them defenses rolling. You know, back in the Isaiah Land days and even last season, you know, winning the Celebration Bowl, and then they also lost Coach Morgan, who got a head coaching job at Bluefield State. So I mean, you know, I mean, technically they had to replace Coach Simmons twice, because Coach Simmons also was the quarterbacks coach. So you bring in a guy, Henry Burris, who's like a CFL legend, CFL Hall of Famer. So I think that, and if you didn't know, Cozy coached in Canada before he got the assistant job at FAMU. So I think Cozy, he's a guy that's very well connected. I mean, he's played at Florida State. He had me and him was talking. He had a short stint with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, very short stint, but he had one. Even in the minor league baseball, he played minor league baseball too. So he's a guy that's well connected. He's been in Florida. He's been on Florida State staff. He's been in Canada, so he's seen a lot of football. So it probably wasn't hard. It probably was more hard telling some people, no, I already got this job covered, more than bringing guys in. So I think he's rebuilt that staff nicely. He moved some guys up. Milton Patterson, a JSU grad. He's not a defensive coordinator at FAMU, so he did the right thing with keeping a lot of those guys around. Oh, and also let me not forget Joseph Henry too. Joseph Henry has been on that Willie Simmons coaching tree for the longest at PV, at FAMU. Then he left for a couple years and came back. So So Coach Cozy, he made the right moves as far as bringing guys in and moving guys up, elevating them, and all those things.
Yep, and that Coach Cozy and the staff has gotten off to a good start, great start actually, 3-2 on the season, but obviously 2 losses against FBS opponents, but
Right.
more importantly 1-0 in SWAC play, and ranked number 18 in the nation in FCS football. So give me a couple key takeaways about this team so far. What's kind of jumped out at you?
I would say what jumped out at me is the team's ability to respond. Those comeback victories still stick with me. Now, I was very pessimistic about the comebacks after they came back on South Carolina State, because I said, look, y'all ain't gonna win no championship having to come back in every game. Because to me, when we were in that box during that South Carolina State game, we was chalking it up as an L. I mean, you go down 18-7 in the fourth quarter. We like, offense hasn't been able to put touchdowns in, got some turnovers, and they just made it happen. And I always say, having a good quarterback covers a multitude of sins.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, they got good quarterback play. That's one thing. It's hard to find good quarterbacks out here, especially in the portal. And it's like they hit on one with Daniel. But that's the main thing. The team's perseverance, the team's ability to respond. Even when they played against Troy, I firmly believe that should have been a victory.
Okay.
That should have been a victory when they played against Troy. They had an opportunity to go up, but I think they got a little greedy and went for it on fourth down and didn't get it. And then Troy started putting touchdowns on the board, and FAMU kind of lost the sauce a little bit, and you could tell they was kind of out of it and ready to get back to the FCS level and SWAC level of play. But yeah, what was the question again? I think I'm just rambling. What was the question again?
Just a couple of key takeaways from the team. I know that's a loaded question, but just kind of some things that have jumped out at you.
Yeah, and one thing I realized is they seem like they're more of an offensive team than past years. Typically the defense has been, the backbone of the team, and the defense has been the unit that's kind of been slowly trying to mesh. But also, I mean, they played against Alabama State and was able to get some turnovers, forced 3 turnovers, 2 interceptions, and a forced fumble, which went for a touchdown. So if the defense can get up to where the offense is, I think this can be a very dangerous team. But like I said, back to what we was talking about with just the portal, when you have all those new players coming in, it's going to take some time. 5 games may not be enough. It may take up until the 8th game, the 9th game for the team to fully reach its maximum potential, because it's just so many guys that are unfamiliar with each other.
What would you say are the biggest surprise about this team for you so far, good or bad?
Biggest surprise for me, honestly, has been how the defense has kind of declined so far early in this season. I mean, you got Milton Patterson, who developed those. Milton Patterson helped develop Isaiah Land, who's in the NFL now. And the defense has dropped off. Finally got his first forced turnover.
Wow.
But it's not the defense that you typically see. Like I said, it's a new look team. And some of the stats are skewed, because they played against Miami, they played against two FBS teams. You don't really see that often.
Right.
But the stats are a little skewed. So now that FAMU is back on its level of FCS and SWAC play, I'm interested to see how the defense picked up. I feel like the defense picked up a little bit against Alabama State. Alabama State broke the long run in the first quarter, like first drive, second drive. But other than that, I feel like Alabama State didn't run on FAMU. That's been FAMU's weakness. And teams are going to try to run on FAMU up until they hold the team to 83 rushing yards for the game or something like that. So that's been the biggest surprise. Just the defense, how the defense is kind of work in progress. But I think if they can show that they can start the run and start forcing teams to pass as they did Alabama State, teams will start to fear that defense once again.
We talked about some of the personnel losses from last season. None much bigger than quarterback Jeremy Musa. I know you've already kind of mentioned Daniel Richardson, but how fortunate was Coach Cozy to retain him? the grad transfer from Florida Atlantic, and he passes the eye test. You talk about hitting on the quarterback, how important that is. That can really make or break your season. But he not only passes the eye test, but he passes the stat test as well. He's currently second in the SWAC in passing, almost 1,200 yards through 5 games, and his completion percentage is the highest in the SWAC, almost 67%. 9 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions, and I love his pocket awareness and his ability to escape the pressure and still hit the receiver downfield. So let's talk specifically about his play and how big it was for the program for Coach Coley to be able to keep him in the fold after Coach Simmons left.
Yeah, so much of the dialogue when Dan Richardson got here was, of course, his size. It was like, when you got a guy Musa who's 6'3", and then you resort to a guy Dan Richardson who's maybe 5'10". Everybody say, he's too short to play. And I said, do y'all not realize this man played at 2 FBS schools and actually produced? And I said one of them was Central Michigan, so you know them linemen big. They were saying, he can't see over the line and all those type of things. But I said, hey, think about it. If he can't see over the line, that means the defense line can't see him neither. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's been a seamless transition. I mean, he made his impact as soon as he got at FAMU, winning the MEAC SWAT Challenge MVP. So that's been a guy you can tell he's battle tested. He won a bowl game when he was at Central Michigan, like as the starting quarterback. He won the Sun Bowl at Central Michigan, beating Washington State in 2021. And like the guy has thrown for over 8,000 yards in his career, so this is new to him. I always wonder why did he move down the level. You know what I mean? Because I was like, he was producing, but I think he wanted to kind of be in a winning program, because this is his final season. And it sucks that FAMU get him in his last year. I know FAMU, they had Musa, but I know they probably like, man, imagine if we would have had this guy and then came back the next year, after learning the program, learning the system. But he's making it happen in that 1 year. So he's been a guy. He's like a bowling ball. He's short, but he be out here trying to run people over when he scramble the ball. I'll be like, boy, if you don't dive, slide or something like that. But yeah, he's a guy. He makes smart decisions, and he's a guy that he's never satisfied neither. You talk to him, and you wouldn't think that's a guy that's second in the SWAC and in the mix for the FCS passing rankings and all that, because he always talking about getting better. I got to take care of the ball. I got to learn to throw the ball away and those type of things. So he's highly critical of himself, and I think that's a testament to his age, because I believe he's a 5th-year senior. So he probably seen a lot of quarterback play, and he's experienced a lot of quarterback play. So when he come here, he like, okay, y'all, I know we're a new team, but I've seen it's nothing that I haven't seen before throughout my career. So I think that's why he make it look so easy when it's time for comeback time.
And talk about some of those targets that I mentioned that he can hit downfield, and what this year's version of the Rack Boys looks like, because obviously big names in the past, Xavier Smith, Marcus Wiley, we can go down the list. So what are those targets looking like for him?
Oh yeah, man, Jamar Gassett, man, he's nice. And it's crazy because Jamar Gassett was on the team last year, and he was sitting behind guys like Marcus Riley and K-Dot, Jamarius Shareed. So if Jamar Gassett, he'll get his opportunity sometime. Last year he had 24 catches, like 320 yards, and maybe 1 touchdown. And this year he already eclipsed those stats.
Okay.
He made himself known. He submitted himself as the wide receiver 1 in the MEAC SWAT Challenge when he caught 8 passes for 120 yards and scored 2 touchdowns. A big piece in that, either 1 or 2 touchdowns. I can't remember, but I know he went crazy that game. So he submitted himself, and even against Troy, he had 10 catches, 141 yards. And if it's a game you're gonna show out against those FBS teams. So Jamarius Shareed, that's one guy. The tight ends, I called them the unsung heroes. Carter Johnson and Kobe Gross. Those guys were big until FAMU's comeback against South Carolina State. And being a tight end, it's all about opportunity. Being a tight end, you might get the ball 5 times one game and might not get no targets the next game. You know what I mean? But those guys, when they're called upon, they make it happen. And then the other receivers, Quan Lee, he transferred from UCF last season, didn't play much. But he's a guy. He's a dog. And I was reading up about him, and I think he's the all time leading receiving yards getter in Gainesville, Florida. Or throughout the city.
Wow.
So
That's huge.
So he's been a guy. He stepped up. I think he might have scored in the last game, but I know he had a big catch. Against Alabama State and Ace Cobb, a guy that came also transferred from Florida Atlantic with Daniel Richardson. Ace Cobb didn't really play that much. They didn't really share the field that much, but they probably was able to get some practice runs in together. So they got a few guys that can get the ball and go. FAMU, they like those small but speedy receivers.
Mm-hmm.
Jamari Cassette, he's one of those guys that Willie Simmons brought in because that was Willie Simmons' style. He's want to get you the ball and go.
Mm-hmm.
So they got a few guys that just can just go out there and make a play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then in the backfield, looks like FAMU is having a hard time trying to establish the run early on this season, at least through 5 games. So talk about what you're seeing in that backfield.
Yeah, backfield wise, man. I remember my first season in 2022. FAMU struggled to run the ball, and last year they were okay. They were middle of the pack. Terrell Jennings, he caught lightning in the bottle towards the end of the season, winning the Florida Classic MVP and then winning the SWAC Championship MVP. And now he's in the NFL. He just got moved up to the main roster for the New England Patriots. But this year is like the rushing game is back, kind of down to earth. And honestly, I was asked on another show. They said, "What you think the issue is?" I said, "Man, honestly, I don't even know no more." I said, I can't even tell you. I cannot put my finger on it. But the past 3 seasons, even with Terrell Jennings last year, FAMU hasn't been one of the top SWAC rushing teams, but somehow they still find ways to win. Mm-hmm. But the guy Bo Somerset, I think I'll call him the future of FAMU football. He's a guy. He came in. He had a few opportunities to play Power 5 ball, and he came to FAMU out of high school, and he's a guy that can go out and play receiver too if he wants to. I believe in high school he played like anything. So he can go out and play slot, flanker, any of those type of positions too. But I think he's a guy that's going to be the future. Of course, you still got Kelvin Dean. Mm-hmm. Kelvin Dean. I think Kelvin Dean is a weapon that they should really emphasize on passing the ball to him out of the backfield as they did in the Celebration Bowl, because that was one thing when Kelvin Dean first transferred to FAMU last year. That was one thing I noticed. I said he knew, like, when you throw him a flat or anything out of the backfield, like, he makes it happen. And it came out during the Celebration Bowl too. So they got talent in the backfield, but it's just they're not able to put it together right now. So, but I mean, also, when you got a passing attack, it kind of makes up for it a little bit. But I know it probably take a little bit of the weight off the passing games, the receivers, and the quarterback's shoulder if the running game can get moving.
And then O-line play. I know FAMU returned 13 offensive linemen from the 2023 championship team, and several of them were starters. So that's one thing that's consistent from last year. So has that line been something that Cozy has been able to count on consistently this season?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, those guys. Yeah, just about the whole line came back, except for one guy, which is Cam Cofield, who graduated. But I mean, Darren Richardson I don't really see him take many hits or anything like that. Granted, like I said, he's a smart quarterback. He knows when to try to keep a play alive, and he knows when to throw a play dead. You know what I mean? So that helps the offensive line too, but yeah, those guys, they're consistent. They're consistent. They're guys who've been there since 2022, 2023, and they're just keeping that thing rolling. I know they would love to get more rushing yards because that's kind of where they make their money. They get to run down the field a little bit if the guys running the ball down the field. So it's been pretty consistent. It's been a pretty constant. Guys like Jalen Goss and TJ Lee. It's rare where you see a guy use his 4 eligibility years straight up. TJ Lee came to FAMU and was already playing as soon as he got to campus as a center and guard. And the thing is about FAMU is that they put the best 5 on the field. You know what I mean? So TJ Lee, he can rotate from center to guard. Ashton Grable can play guard and tackle. So they have a good formula for offensive line that they want to do. They want you to be versatile, and that's what they got on their offensive line.
Mm-hmm. So, Gerald, I want you to put that coaching cap on. I don't know if you coached football before. We're going to put you on the spot, and we're going to make you Jackson State's defensive coordinator, right? So you're scouting this team, you're watching FAMU. What concerns you the most? If you had to pick out the one thing that's concerning you about that offense, their offense, FAMU's offense, and then what's that thing that you're looking at that you think you can exploit, that weakness?
I think it's the same answer. I'll be afraid of the quarterback play.
Okay.
And if I feel like I can exploit you got to have great coverage. You got to have great coverage, and you got to see if you can force FAMU to run the ball as much as they can. Because as you see, they're clearly not a good rushing team as of right now. So that's the main thing that sticks out to me is that they can pass the ball. They got a quarterback that can spin it. So let's try to see if we can get them to run the ball a little bit, because we know that's the easier way to stop them instead of letting Daniel Richardson chill in the pocket or get out the pocket and still make a play. So that's what I would go after if I was an opposing coach.
Mm-hmm. All right, good stuff. So let's move on over to that defensive side before we let you go. Of course, the previous 2 seasons under Coach Simmons, FAMU was known for having a stout defense, and you mentioned it earlier. The 2 FBS opponents, it makes it tough for us to gauge this team offensively and defensively if you're looking at the numbers. But what kind of and I know you talked a little bit about defense, but what's your assessment of the defense again, and how does it stack up against those stout Willie Simmons FAMU defenses?
Yeah, well, like I said, the defense is a work in progress. So it's not as of right now, it's not the dark cloud defenses of the past. And I have no problem saying that. Just because they, like I said, you have a new defensive coordinator. So of course he has the formula of what makes you great, but of course he's going to want to put his spin on things also. So and you lose a guy. It's like FAMU loses a star defensive player every year.
Yeah.
They lose Major last year. They lose Isaiah Land the year before. They lose Marquise Bell the year before that. After this season, they lose in Kendall Bowler. It's like they lose a defensive star every year. Yeah. So like I said, it was a good sign to see them go out there and get some interceptions against Alabama State, because I feel like they were like, if we can get Alabama State to stop running the ball and get a lead and pass it, we can pick those guys off, and that's what they went out there and did. And then they also went out there and forced the fumble for the touchdown. Kendall Bowler, he basically cut the whole field in half. I'm like, man, I know Kendall Bowler be out there bored on the field because nobody ever throw his way. You know what I mean? And it was the same way last year, because Kendall, I remember when the coach was messing with Kendall, they said, man, you got all those pass breakups and no interceptions. You know what I mean? And then he finally got one in the Celebration Bowl when it really mattered the most. And then another guy on defense, and this is a guy that I've been very high on, Nayron Jenkins at linebacker. He's the leading tackler, and man, he's nice. He's been a guy that played majority special teams, throughout his first 2 years in college, but now like he's holding out one of those starting linebacker spots, and he's been the guy. Like, he scored the touchdown last game. He leads the team with 32 tackles. He's really holding out. Him and Eric Horn. Eric Horn is a transfer from Iowa State, got to the team in 2022, and both of those guys are playing the linebacker role. And they got a good bit of linebacker rotation with, they got a guy Jared Fox from Mississippi Valley. They got Jerome Nichols from Michigan. So Jerome Nichols, I guess he's trying to repeat with 2 different teams, playing on Michigan last year. But yeah, they got names. They just gotta, become cohesive. James Ash playing defensive tackle. They got guys. Deco Wilson. He caught the first interception of the season for FAMU. So they got guys that can make plays. They got guys that can stop offenses and bother offenses. But they, like I said, it's just a work in progress. But seeing them play against Jackson State this weekend, it kind of maybe gauge a little bit, because Jackson State has I believe the 30th best defense and 30th best offense in the FCS, and that's out of 129 teams. So that's pretty high.
Mm-hmm. And is there a specific position group that you would single out and say it stands out above the others as the strength of the defense?
I'd say that. Let me see. I'll see because look. I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna leave somebody out, and then one of them gonna end up seeing this and be like, "Oh, you forgot about us."
It's always like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Man. On now, I'd say the DBs.
The DBs, okay.
The DBs have had to stop a lot of long runs. You know what I mean? You know, being that last line of defense. Like I said, Deco Wilson, he went out there and got him an interception. TJ Huggins, he went out there and got him an interception. Kendall Bowler, he basically cuts the field in half. Because you got to think if it, you know, the DBs, you know, they're not getting as much action as usual because teams, you know, want to run on FAMU. That's what has been shown to proven to work. So I say DB, they've had a lot of touchdown saving tackles this year. And you know, right now they're still trying to find that mix of who's going to be that cornerback too. So a lot of guys have been playing, but you know, TJ Huggins, you know, going up getting that interception. I think he creates mismatches for you know, receivers depending on, you know, how to height, because TJ Huggins is a guy that's like 6'3". He's a taller cornerback. And he played FBS football too at Tulane, you know, that year when they had that real good year. I think that was 2022. So you know, they got a lot of guys. You know, the DBs is like just like the offensive line, how they try to play the best. The DBs, it could be a different guy that, you know, each play, which how much depth they got at those positions.
I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier. Just talk about the slow starts, and you know, this team, it looking like a second half team, right? And the staff seems to be pretty good at making those halftime adjustments. What are you seeing differently from this team in the second half versus the first half of some of these games?
Man, it's always been like that, man. Like, it's crazy how you get a new head coach, you get a new personnel, and like I can think of a few games where FAMU had to be a second half team. Last year, Texas Southern, Southern had Ladarius Owens running all over the place. Southern, that was a game when they, you know, had to tap into it. Celebration Bowl. You know, Howard had FAMU on the ropes. You know, that was like the first time I ever saw like a team really go out there and look like they were actually beating FAMU just because they were taking advantage of you know, opportunity that FAMU was giving them. So man, I think it's just making adjustments. I think they have a coaching staff that knows how to make adjustments. And even talking to Coach Cozy, he said, like, we listen to the players. As a coach, you're on the sideline, so you only see so much. And it's not like you're in the box where you can see the whole field. You're on level ground, so you can't see the whole field. You only can see just one area of the field at a time. So so I think it's just those adjustments that they make. What adjustments that they do make, I don't know, because they not gonna tell me.
Of course not.
Yeah, but man, they make those adjustments, and that's something that coaching staff has been flourishing at for years now, and being able to put teams away.
All right, good stuff, man. Last one before we get you out of here. I want you to, I know you talked to Coach Cozy a lot, so tell me what maybe he's said it, maybe you've heard him talk to the team or he told you, but what would you think? What do you think Coach Cozy is stressing to the team this week that they'll need to do Saturday to come away with the win?
I say control your own destiny. You know, FAMU before last season, the previous 2 seasons, they didn't control their own destiny. 2021 lost to Jackson 7-6, had to play catch up. And you know, in the SWAC, you know, you could be up on a team 1 game, but you still you still kind of technically up 2 games on them.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And then 2022, we all know what happened with the 59-3 game. They didn't control their destiny. You know, 2021, luckily it worked out. They got into the FCS playoffs. 2022, you know, the thought was we gonna make it in. Didn't make it in, and I think that played into why they did so well in 2023. Because, you know, even talking to Coach Simmons, he said never again we were gonna let somebody control when we were going to play football again. So I think Coach Cozy is kind of stressing that because he was on that staff in 2022 that didn't get selected into the FCS playoffs. So he's telling them like, hey, it's still a lot of football left to play after this, but we'll be in great shape if we were to win this, if we were to go and win this game. And also, I mean, winning this game, man, you know, beating Alabama State at its homecoming and then beating Jackson State on the road is it's hard to argue that, man. It's hard to argue that. So I think that's the main thing: controlling on destiny and staying the game ahead. And then it's like, you know, you don't want to coast until the end of the season because you know that could hurt you. Somebody can sneak them and beat you. But definitely, you know, you want to stay ahead in those standings and position yourself to represent the East. And if you represent the East, you got a chance to SWAC championship. If you get the SWAC championship, then you back playing in Atlanta in December again. So I think that's the ultimate goal. It'll be huge if Coach Cozy was to, you know, get a championship in his first year as the head coach at FAMU, especially with all the expectations that's placed on him.
All right, man. We're looking forward to a big game. Same sentiment in Jackson. Control your own destiny. We've been on both ends of the spectrum. Obviously, last year playing catch up, and you know we know all too well about FAMU being a second half team because trust me, as the team that's waiting for FAMU to lose and needing FAMU to lose, you better believe it. Every week we're saying, okay, they're going down, and they always come back. So we know it's like torture for us watching the games, you know, or you know, keeping up with the score because we think they are finally going to lose, and they always pull it out. So I know we had that taste in our mouth, but the game being in Jackson, home field advantage, going back to the home series. Will the FAMU fans travel? That's what we want to know. Now, little known fact, people who don't live in Florida, I've been in Florida for 20 years, so I know they don't realize how big of a state it is. So you would think that Miami is closer to Tallahassee than Jackson is to Tallahassee. It's about the same. Jackson's actually a little bit closer. So for fans, for the ones who live in Tallahassee, obviously I know you have fans all over, but it's a little bit closer to get to Jackson than it is to get to Miami for FAMU fans in Tallahassee. So what's the buzz? You think they're going to travel? Because you know we have a big stadium, and you know the Jackson fans will be there.
Yeah, man. I've never been to the Vet, and sadly I won't be at the game on Saturday.
Oh man.
Yeah, sadly I won't be at the game on Saturday. But man, you know they led the nation. Jackson State led the nation in attendance in regular season attendance last year. So you know that's going to be Jackson State fans filling up, but you know opposing fans going to come out there too. So expect to see a lot of orange and green out there because they know how big this game is. You know, it's a lot of great trips FAMU had this year. I feel like this season right here is like one of the it seems like it's so even. You know, we get Southern here in Tallahassee, you know, and that's always a rivalry, and you know, you got Texas Southern coming for homecoming, and then you get to go to Jackson and Alabama State, you know, in just about back-to-back games. You know, it's hard to beat that. So I think FAMU fans are going to travel. You know, they everywhere, man. You know, you know, you go anywhere, you're gonna see FAMU fans. You can't get away from them. So they'll definitely be in Jackson. They'll be talking their trash, and Jackson State fans be talking their trash. And I think it got the makings to be a good game, man. Like, to me, I feel like it's a toss up and who wins that game. But it definitely has to make it to be something. You see, it's a reason ESPNU picked it up.
Absolutely.
It's a reason ESPNU picked it up. So definitely, man, it's going to be a big one.
I think they kind of had their eye on it from the beginning. They didn't take it right away, but they kind of left that window open, and you know, right on time.
Exactly.
Jackson State moves into the top 25 to make it even bigger. So expecting a great game, great atmosphere. Now, one thing that adds to the atmosphere, obviously, in any HBCU football game, is the band. But word on the street is that FAMU's band, March 100, won't be making the trip. So have you heard anything? Is there anything that you can share about that?
Honestly, I haven't heard anything about the band.
I
haven't heard anything about the band. So it's no telling. They traveled to Alabama State, but you know, Alabama State and FAMU, they kind of got their thing where they bring their bands back and forth. But you know, with this being a new type of traditional home and away game, I don't know what the agreement is between the schools. So I don't know if the band will be there now. They might pop up in surprise.
Yeah, I think they're just they're putting it out there that they're not coming and they're gonna surprise everybody at the last minute. I'll be honest, I'm torn on that one. As a Jackson State fan, hey, stay at home, FAMU band, because we know the band can motivate the team and get them going. So as a Jackson State fan who needs this win, stay at home. But you know, from the HBCU football fans, just the environment, the experiences on ESPN, like we got to see it, man. We want to see them. We want to see both bands. We hope they can make the trip. So we'll see. We'll wait and see. Other than that, man, it doesn't get much better than this, man. As far as HBCU football, like I said, 2 top 25 teams, ESPNU, 2:30. The game that could determine the East is still early, but I don't see one of these teams losing 2 games getting the SWAC for the rest of the season. So again, for all intents and purposes, could determine the East. Perfect football weather, so we cannot wait. Gerald, man, we appreciate you, man. Thank you for doing this.
Definitely, man. It was an honor to be on, man. And I'm excited to see what the result of the game gonna be this weekend. No
doubt, you and me both. All right, man. Take care. Sorry you won't be able to make the trip, but I know you'll be glued.
Yes, sir. Definitely.
All right, no doubt.
Tiger Talk TV is presented by Bet Online.